Your heart has been carrying you for 6, 7, maybe 8 decades. Give it a gentler beginning to the day. It has earned that, and so have you. Stop what you're doing right now, because what I'm about to share with you could change the way you wake up every morning for the rest of your life. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I'm saying it because if you are over 60, the first 30 seconds after you open your eyes may be placing more strain on your heart than almost anything else you do all day. Not breakfast, not your walk, not even the stress you deal with later in the afternoon. The first 30 seconds, that is how serious this is. I'm Dr. Adrian, and over the years I've cared for too many men and women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who were doing what most people would call all the right things. They were taking their medications. They were watching their salt. They were trying to eat better. They were staying reasonably active. They were not reckless people. They were not ignoring their health. And yet they still found themselves in emergency rooms, in cardiology offices, or sitting across from me after a terrifying episode that seemed to come out of nowhere. Chest tightness at 7 in the morning. A racing heartbeat before breakfast, a dizzy spell standing beside the bed, a near fall in the bathroom, a sudden wave of weakness that made them grab the wall and pray it passed. And when I started digging deeper, asking better questions, listening more carefully, I found something that most people never get told. For many of them, the problem was not the whole day. The problem was the morning. More specifically, the problem was how they were moving from sleep into waking. Because there is a dangerous physiological window between waking up and late morning when your body is already under significant cardiovascular strain. Your blood pressure rises sharply. Your heart rate begins climbing. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline surge. Your blood becomes more prone to clotting. And if you handle that window badly, if you pile the wrong habits on top of a system that is already vulnerable, you can quietly turn an ordinary morning into a high-risk event. That is why I need you to stay with me until the very end of this. Because the number one protective habit I'm going to show you today is so simple, so practical, and so completely free that many people will underestimate it. Please don't. Some of the most powerful changes in medicine are not the most expensive, not the most glamorous, and not the ones that come in a bottle. Sometimes the most powerful intervention is a change in sequence, a change in timing, a change in the first few minutes of the day that finally allows the body to work with you instead of against you. And here's the part that should get your full attention. More heart attacks and strokes happen in the early morning hours than at any other time of day. Not because people suddenly become unhealthy at sunrise, but because the cardiovascular system, especially after 60, is at its most fragile during the transition from sleep to activity. That transition is where people make mistakes they don't even realize are mistakes. And today I'm going to walk you through the 7 most dangerous morning mistakes that quietly increase cardiac risk in adults over 60, ranked from concerning to critical. Then, at the end, I'm going to show you exactly what to do instead, step by step, in a simple transition protocol that can completely change how your heart experiences the start of the day. So before we begin, I want you to think honestly about your own routine. When you wake up in the morning, what is the first thing you do? Not what you wish you did. Not what you did last week when you were trying to be healthier. What do you usually do? Do you sit up immediately? Reach for your phone? Go straight to the bathroom? Pour coffee before water? Start thinking about everything that is wrong, everything you forgot, everything you have to handle today? Keep your answer in your mind, because there is a very good chance your own routine is going to show up somewhere on this list. Let's start with mistake number 7, checking your phone within the first 2 minutes of waking up. This one surprises people because it sounds harmless. In fact, it sounds so normal that many people don't even think of it as a habit anymore. It is just what they do. Alarm goes off, eyes open, hand reaches out, phone lights up, brain engages. But what feels normal is not always what is safe. When you first wake up, your nervous system is coming out of a deeply restorative state. Your body is already in the middle of a major shift. Blood pressure is rising, heart rate is increasing. Hormones are changing. The brain is transitioning from sleep architecture to waking awareness. It is not a calm, neutral moment. It is an active, fragile physiological transition. Now imagine taking that already sensitive moment and immediately flooding the brain with stimulation. Messages, notifications, emails, news headlines, family problems, a doctor appointment reminder, a bill alert, even something as simple as a neutral text or social media update. It does not have to be bad news to create a cardiovascular effect. The moment you give the brain information to process, it shifts into alert mode. That creates another jump in cortisol, another push in blood pressure, another layer of stress on top of a system that was already adjusting itself. What many older adults describe as waking up tense is often not just emotional. It is physiological. Their body is being forced into full alertness before it has had the chance to stabilize. I remember a gentleman in his late 60s who told me he felt an uncomfortable rush in his chest almost every morning. He assumed it was age. He assumed mornings were just hard now. When I asked him to walk me through his first minute of the day, he laughed and said, "Phone, always." before I even sit up. We took his phone out of the bedroom for 1 week. Not forever. 1 week. At his follow-up, he said something simple, but revealing. I didn't realize how aggressively I was starting my day until I stopped. That is exactly right. The problem is not just that the phone is distracting. The problem is that it turns a vulnerable physiological window into a stress event. So here is the fix. For the first 2 minutes after waking, no phone. None. Not to check the time. Not to look at a message. Not to peek at the weather. Nothing. Give your brain and your cardiovascular system 2 protected minutes to wake up before the outside world barges in. 2 minutes may sound small. In the life of an aging heart, it is not small at all. Now, if mistake number 7 sounds manageable, mistake number 6 is the one that many people resist emotionally because it involves a ritual they love: drinking coffee before drinking water. I know, for many people, coffee is sacred. It is comfort. It is routine. It is identity. For some, it feels like the real start of the day, but your heart does not care about ritual. It cares about physiology. And the physiology here is straightforward. During 7 or 8 hours of sleep, you lose fluid through breathing and normal body processes. By the time you wake up, you are mildly dehydrated. That is true for most adults. After 60, that dehydration matters more because the cardiovascular system is less forgiving and less able to compensate quickly. At the same time, blood is naturally thicker in the morning. It is more prone to clotting. That is part of what makes the morning cardiovascular surge dangerous in the first place. Now take a mildly dehydrated body with thicker blood and make the first thing it receives a caffeinated beverage before water. What happens? The system tightens instead of loosening. Circulation gets less efficient instead of more efficient. The heart has to push harder instead of easier. Many people think of coffee as energy, but in the first minutes of the day, before hydration, it can be stress masquerading as energy. I had a patient in his early 70s who described his mornings as heavy, not dramatic, not painful, just heavy. He felt pressure in his chest, a vague sluggishness, a sense that his body was waking up under a weight. His labs were not catastrophic, his medications were appropriate, but his sequence was wrong. Every morning he woke up, stood up, and poured coffee into a system that had not been rehydrated. I told him to put a full glass of room temperature water beside the bed the night before and drink it before the first sip of coffee. 1 week later, he said, "My mornings feel smoother." That word matters. Smoother means the system is transitioning the way it was meant to. So here is your rule. Before coffee, drink 1 full glass of water, not a few polite sips, a real glass. Let the body regain fluid before you ask it to deal with stimulation. It costs nothing, it takes seconds, and it may be one of the most important changes you make. Now let's move to mistake number 5, the one that sends more people into dizzy spells, near faints, and frightening morning episodes than they realize. Standing up too quickly from bed. If you are over 60, I want you to listen to this carefully. That moment of dizziness when you stand too fast is not harmless. It is not cute. It is not just one of those quirky things that happens with age. It is evidence that your brain temporarily did not get the blood flow it needed during that sudden shift in posture. When you go from lying down to standing very quickly, the cardiovascular system has to redistribute blood immediately. In younger bodies, that adjustment is usually faster and smoother. In older bodies, especially in people with reduced blood vessel elasticity or slower autonomic response, that adjustment can lag. And when it lags, blood pressure drops sharply. You may know the feeling already. A wave of dizziness, a brief graying of vision, a moment where you reach for the wall, the dresser, the bedpost. That is not a small signal. That is the body saying, "You moved faster than I could safely support." I remember a 71-year-old retired school teacher who came to see me after a near-fainting episode in her bedroom. She had done what she'd done thousands of times before. Wake up, sit up, swing the legs over, stand. But this time her body could not keep up. She grabbed the nightstand just in time and stood there terrified, realizing how close she had come to falling. Nothing about her intention was reckless. The problem was that her routine had never evolved to match her age. That happens to a lot of good people. They keep doing at 72 what they used to do at 42, and they don't realize the body has changed the rules. So I taught her a 3-step morning transition. When you wake up, stay still for about 30 seconds. Then bring yourself to a sitting position slowly, and pause again. Let your legs dangle. Let your body register the change. Then place your feet flat. Lean slightly forward, and stand with intention. Not like you're late for a train. Like someone who understands the value of the next 10 years of life. When she came back months later, she told me the dizzy spells were gone. But what stayed with me was the line she used. She said, "I didn't realize how much I was scaring my body every morning." Exactly. That is what people are doing when they stand too fast. They are frightening a system that needs sequence, not speed. Now mistake number 4, skipping breakfast or eating the wrong thing first. This one is trickier because it hides behind the language of diet, and many people have strong opinions about diet. Some believe breakfast is essential, others believe skipping breakfast is always better. But the truth, especially after 60, is not ideological. It is physiological. Overnight, your body is fasting, regulating blood sugar, releasing hormones, maintaining circulation, and preparing for the waking process. By morning, your cardiovascular system has already been working hard. If you skip food entirely and your body is already prone to shakiness, cortisol surges, or unstable morning energy, you may be adding stress at the exact time you should be creating stability. On the other hand, if you reach for a high-sugar, high-refined carbohydrate breakfast, you create a different problem. You get a rapid blood sugar spike, followed by a crash. That crash does not only affect mood or appetite. It affects the cardiovascular system. It can make the body feel anxious, shaky, edgy, and strained. I have seen both mistakes. The man who thinks he is being disciplined by eating nothing until noon, while his body wakes up in a state of metabolic stress every morning. The woman who grabs a pastry and sweet coffee, then wonders why she feels weak, fluttery, and irritable an hour later. The heart does not want volatility in the morning. It wants steadiness. That means the first meal should support stable blood sugar, not chaos. Protein, healthy fat, fiber, eggs with vegetables, plain yogurt with nuts, oatmeal with seeds and berries, especially if you pair it with protein. A breakfast that tells the body, you are safe, fueled, and supported. And timing matters too. If your morning tends to feel shaky, weak, or overstimulated, eating within the first hour of waking can make a meaningful difference. Not because breakfast is magic, but because the body is already doing a great deal of work at that time of day, and helping it stabilize reduces the stress load on the heart. Now we come to mistake number 3, and this is where some people get defensive because the habit itself is usually praised. Exercising too intensely in the early morning. Let me be very clear. Exercise is one of the most powerful protective tools we have for the cardiovascular system. This is not an argument against exercise. It is an argument against bad timing. The early morning hours are already a high-pressure physiological window. Blood pressure is elevated. Heart rate is climbing. Blood is thicker. Stress hormones are active. If you throw vigorous exercise directly on top of that, you can turn a healthy habit into a badly timed stress event. I had a patient, a retired firefighter, proud of his discipline. Up early, hard run before breakfast, same routine for years. He associated toughness with consistency, but then chest tightness started showing up during his morning runs. Not every day, not enough to stop him immediately, just enough to warn him. His heart wasn't structurally falling apart. His timing was wrong. I asked him to do something he did not want to hear. Move the hard exercise later in the day and keep the morning movement gentle. He resisted, of course. People often resist advice that challenges a routine they take pride in. But he tried it. A few weeks later, the chest tightness was gone. His recovery was better. He actually felt stronger during his later workouts. He had not lost discipline. He had finally aligned discipline with physiology. That is what I want for you. If you love morning movement, keep it. But make it gentle. Walk, stretch, do mobility work. Let the system warm up. Do not ask an aging heart to go from lying down to high-intensity effort in the same fragile window. Morning is for transition. Later is for performance. Now mistake number 2, ignoring emotional stress in the first waking minutes. This is one of the most underestimated contributors to morning cardiac strain because it is invisible. Nobody sees it. There's no cup in your hand, no machine involved, no obvious behavior to point to. It all happens internally. You open your eyes and before your feet even hit the floor, the mind begins its assault. The bills, the conflict, the appointment, the diagnosis you are worried about, the child or grandchild you're concerned about, the thing you forgot, the thing you must not forget today, the thing you dread facing. And suddenly your heart is no longer just waking up. It is waking up inside stress. The body already produces a rise in cortisol to help you wake. That is normal. But when you immediately begin feeding the brain emotional distress, you create a second wave of stress on top of the first. That double load lands on blood vessels, blood pressure, electrical conduction, and the entire system of an aging heart. I remember a 74-year-old retired nurse who came to me after several mornings of palpitations. Her workup did not explain the severity of what she was feeling. So I asked a different question. What are you thinking about in the first minute after you wake up? She laughed, then cried, because the answer was everything. Her daughter's health, a doctor appointment she was dreading, money, fear, regret. Every morning she was mentally flooding her system before her body had even finished waking. I told her to do something that sounded almost too simple. For the first 2 minutes after waking, lie still. Do not problem solve. Breathe in for 4, hold for 2, out for 6. Repeat. If it helps, think of 3 things you are grateful for. Not because gratitude is trendy, because the nervous system responds to direction. A few weeks later, the palpitations had stopped. Not magically, biologically. She stopped pouring fear into the body before the body had finished stabilizing. Now we arrive at mistake number 1. The most dangerous mistake on this list. The one that ties all the others together. Moving from lying down to full activity without a transition protocol. This is the real problem. The phone, the coffee, the fast rise, the skipped breakfast, the intense exercise, the emotional overload. These are all different expressions of the same error. They all force the heart to go from 0 to full demand too quickly. But after 60, the heart does not want to be yanked into the day. It wants a runway. And when you refuse to give it that runway, morning after morning, year after year, the cumulative damage becomes serious. That is why the number 1 protective habit is not a drug, not a supplement, not a fancy device. It is a structured morning transition, a protocol, a sequence, a few deliberate minutes that tell the cardiovascular system, you do not need to panic, we are going to wake up safely. Here is exactly what I want you to do. Tonight, before bed, place a full glass of room temperature water on your nightstand. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, do not move immediately. Stay still for about 30 seconds. Let awareness return gradually. Feel the bed beneath you. Notice your breath. Do not grab the phone. Do not start thinking about problems. Then begin slow breathing. In for 4, hold for 2, out for 6. Repeat that 4 times. Now, slowly bring yourself to a sitting position. Do not rush this. Once you are sitting, pause again for about 30 seconds. Let the body register the change in orientation. Let blood pressure adjust. Then drink the water you placed beside the bed the night before. All of it, or as much as you comfortably can. Then, and only then, stand up slowly. Plant your feet. Lean slightly forward. Rise with intention. And for the first 5 to 10 minutes after standing, keep everything gentle. No sprinting into the day, no panicked phone checking, no racing thoughts if you can help it. No intense exercise, just gentle movement, a slow walk, a little stretching, a quiet start. That is the protocol. It does not require money. It does not require a doctor's office. It does not require equipment, but it does require respect for the body you live in now, not the body you had 30 years ago. Now let me make this practical, because good advice only matters if it becomes usable. If you are the kind of person who forgets new routines, put a note card by the bed. Wake. Breathe, sit, drink, stand, move gently. If you need to, set your alarm 2 minutes earlier. Not because you need more stress in the morning, because those 2 minutes may be the healthiest minutes of your day. And don't make the mistake of thinking you must do this perfectly from the start. If one morning gets messy, begin again the next morning. Habits are built through repetition, not perfection. Also, don't underestimate the breathing part. A lot of people hear breathing advice and dismiss it as soft or fluffy. It is not. Controlled breathing has measurable effects on the nervous system and blood pressure. The body listens to breath. And finally, do not tell yourself that because you have always done it this way, it must be fine. That sentence has hurt a lot of people. Always done it this way. Yes. And the body has not always been the age it is now. I want to leave you with one last story. A man in his late 70s came to me after a minor cardiac event. His medications were adjusted. He had been told to walk more, eat better, be careful, all good advice. But no one had ever explained his mornings to him. When he described his routine, I heard every mistake we've talked about. Phone within seconds, stand immediately, coffee before water, brisk movement too soon, mind racing, decades of it. He was a practical man, intelligent, skeptical. But once he understood the logic, he changed the sequence. A few weeks later, he sent me a message that said, I didn't know I was working against my own heart every morning. That is what I want you to take from this today. You are not broken. Your heart is not weak because you need a slower start. Your body is not betraying you, but your routine may be, and now you know how to fix it. So here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, use the morning transition protocol. Just 30 days. Put the water by the bed tonight. Protect the first 2 minutes of the morning. Breathe before you react. Sit before you stand. Hydrate before you stimulate. Move gently before you demand more from your heart. And watch what happens. The steadiness, the calmer mornings, the improved energy, the reduction in that rushed, pressured, slightly unwell feeling so many older adults have accepted as normal.